so proud to be here today. You know, this day is a long time in the making. Our first LPC meeting, local planning committee meeting for the New York Forward $4.5 million grant that we were awarded earlier this year by the governor, by the Department of State. We, of course, want to thank the governor, represented here today by our Long Island Deputy Coordinator, Stevens Martinez. I'm not going to introduce everyone, but I would like to recognize that we do have Deputy Mayor Janine Sartori in the audience here, and Trustees Paul Casado and Donna Solosky as well. We have our village clerk and deputy village clerk here as well, and our community development coordinator as well here with us. You know, Mineola has been traveling this road for a very, very long time. Oftentimes we felt like we were alone, but we kept our eyes on the prize, and eventually we felt that we would get recognized. Last year we had applied for the New York Forward and DRI grants, and we felt like we made a really good presentation. We just missed out last year, so we went in again and tried it again this year, and we felt very confident that we would be recognized with all the efforts that we have made towards downtown revitalization, smart growth, transit-oriented development, revitalization, and we are grateful that the governor, the Department of State, and the REDC saw it fit to recognize the village of Mineola. And I can tell you that since then, we have been essentially supported throughout by, and you're going to meet everyone tonight, by this group from the state that really is going to come in and help us do this. So, you know, initially we get $4.5 million. Everyone's got an idea of what to do with the $4.5 million. Most of it revolves around fixing roads and fixing sidewalks and trees and things like that. But that's not what this is about. This group here, and I would like to also thank, without going into them individually, all of our neighbors and friends and citizens here in the village of Mineola, business owners. We have a wide array of people represented here who volunteered and who agreed to make to be part of this LPC. This is not a small commitment. This is going to be until December, and so we are thankful that our fellow residents agreed to be part of this. In the end, it's this group that you see in front of you that is going to decide, along with the state, the representatives from the state, how we use these $4.5 million. And that process starts today. And I'm going to introduce the person who is spearheading this from the Department of State, the revitalization specialist, Rachel Bruce, to come up, introduce her team, and then hopefully we'll go around and introduce everyone who is here. So once again, thank you all for coming out. We'll have more meetings like this. We'll have, the public is an integral part of this process, and this will always be open. We're taping it today so that we can put it up on our public access channel. And with that, you're not here to hear me. I'm going to turn it over to Rachel to just say a few words and perhaps introduce. Oh, Mark. Okay. Okay, there we go.
Thank you, Mayor. So before we get started officially, I just want to mention we have this slide up currently. And this is, I'm going to speak to the LPC as a bit of a kind of exercise we're going to get to later in the evening. But these two questions, and it's the LPC, you guys have the handout here at your seats. It's the very last slide. These two questions are listed. But as we go through this evening, this meeting, these two questions we just want you to think about. The first is, from your perspective, where is the heart of downtown Mineola? So thinking about what your favorite community gathering places are, what public spaces, streets, sidewalks, plazas, etc. Do you think the improvements? But thinking to where is the heart of downtown Mineola? That's that first question. And then second, we have another question, which is, what is your vision for Mineola in the short term and the long term? And we're asking this because tonight's discussion, we're going to build off of the allocation, the New York Forward application that Bill submitted, to kind of use that as a baseline to think, what the LPC's input is, what else we can add to the conversation. So thank you. Think of these two questions. We'll come back to this. But write any notes that you have down on the post-it notes at your table, please. Pass it to Rachel.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everybody. My name is Rachel Bruce. I'm a revitalization specialist with the New York State Department of State. First and foremost, thank you all for being here. To the members of the LPC, thank you so much for taking on this commitment. The local planning committee is really the cornerstone of the New York Forward process. We want to make sure this is truly a community-driven process in terms of deciding how this community wants to disseminate this grant. Just to begin, just a quick agenda. while we think about this visioning exercise, we're going to accomplish a few things tonight. The first is that first and foremost, we will be discussing our code of conduct. You should have all have completed or watched the replay of the LPC training that was sent out a few days ago, as well as we'll have the opportunity now to declare any potential conflicts of interest. We'll go over that. Next, we'll do DRI and New York Forward program overview, followed by an overview of the planning process. Then your role as a member of the LPC, the public engagement aspect, Mineola's New York Forward application, and then of course what comes next. So first off, welcome, and then our code of conduct, and let's do an introduction, sure thing, thank you. So as I mentioned, my name is Rachel Bruce. I'm here from the Department of State. I want to just highlight a few individuals. As the mayor mentioned before, we have Stevens Martinez from the Governor's Office. We also have Amanda Bearcroft, who is the Program Director for the New York Forward Program and Downtown Revitalization Initiative. We have Carol Longworth, who is the Regional Vice President for Enterprise and Development for Long Island, and Brendan Gibbleman, who's here from ESD as well. And then from BFJ, to my right, we have Susan Lavati, Mark Frecker, and S.G. Sukram. And of course, I think that it would be best if maybe everybody just from the LPC just went around and just briefly said their name and their affiliation. I think it might be a little difficult to pass the mic around, so please try to project.
Sure.
Yes.
Jim Sherry, Mineola Junior High class of '79, Mineola High School class of '83, and resident of 1/3 Avenue, downtown Mineola right now, after decades of living and owning homes in the other Mineola, the residential part of Mineola.
Hi, my name is Gina Bongiovanni. I did grow up in Wilson Park, but I'm in the class of Mineola High School 1988. I currently teach at Mineola High School and have for over 20 years now, and I live at 341 Mineola Boulevard. My children both attended Mineola High School and have gone on to do incredibly wonderful things. And I'm here to contribute whatever I can.
Hi, I'm Sina Colombo, also known as Maria Sina Colombo. I graduated from Mineola High School in 1989. I've lived in Mineola all of my life. My children attended Mineola High School. One graduating college and one to senior at Mineola High School, going to attend college soon. I am the president of the Portuguese School, the Community Portuguese School here in Mineola. And I'm here to contribute all I can as well.
I didn't mean to pigeonhole everybody into revealing what we're So, that should be optional.
That's right, Jim. I'm a graduate in 1976. My name is Michael Spay. I'm the chief of the Mineola Police Department. And it's an honor to be here to join everyone in working on a very important project.
My name is John Doyle. I'm here representing the Irish American Society on Mineola, on Willis Avenue, and I am a transplant from Queens, so I don't have any credentials.
I too lack Mineola credentials. My name is Gracie Cooper, and I am sitting on the planning committee as a member of the Regional Economic Development Council. She really sort of helped the community really find sort of their vision for this and make sure that it aligns with the regional goals that the Regional Economic Development Council has established. And I'm a huge fan of Mineola and already love it. So.
Paul Pereira, mayor of the village of Mineola, 47-year resident of the village, graduated with Sina in 1989. Gina was most artistic senior girl class of '88. I was most artistic senior boy class of '89. And I too teach at Mineola High School, just finishing up my 31st year of coaching, of teaching at Mineola High School. And I am, as I said before, very, very excited about this next chapter in Mineola, and I think that this process is really going to kickstart what we have been envisioning for a long time. And I'd like to thank all of you for being here, and I'd like to thank our fellow committee members for being here.
I'm Carol Giordano. I was born and raised in Queens, but I've been a resident here at Mineola for 30 years. I work at NYU Langone, right here in the hospital in Mineola. My son went to Mineola High School. My husband's an employee
Welcome again, everybody. We're glad to have everybody here. So just a brief refresher for the Code of Conduct. These are the guidelines and standards that you as members of the LPC are expected to uphold, follow throughout the planning process, which will last through around November, December. All LPC members are required to serve and act in the public interests. Members will receive, you should receive an email this afternoon, and must sign a Code of Conduct for members of the New York State Downtown Revitalization Initiative and New York Forward Local Planning Committee Code of Conduct. Members, again, as I mentioned, any sort of conflict of interest should be acknowledged and should use the Code of Conduct to guide their actions while serving on the committee. Remember, disclose any conflict of interest, disclose any conflicts of interest, act in the public interest, and disqualify as necessary. As mentioned before, you will fill out this form in the first meeting. This is when a potential conflict of interest is identified, the LPC members must complete and submit the recusal form. And LPC members who disclose conflict of interest may not vote or attempt to influence a discussion or vote on any projects where a potential conflict of interest exists. Next slide, please. Co-chairs, Mayor Pereira and Rosa Cooper will remind members that their obligation is to recuse at each meeting of the committee. A list of recusals together with a recusal form completed by each recused member will be maintained and will be consistently updated and reviewed as conflicts arise. And voting on recommended projects. At the conclusion of this process in the fall, throughout this process we will discuss and really figure out which projects fall within the interests of this community. We will disqualify as necessary, we will discuss them, this and that, and ultimately we will come up with a slate of projects with a proposed amount to divide up to $4.5 million that will be recommended for state funding. We will vote on this as a slate, and if any individual member has a conflict of interest, you will simply check off on the form that you are recusing yourself from that particular project. But aside from that, all projects will be voted on as a slate. Let's see, yeah, that's about it. And of course, and lastly, a preamble will be read by the LPC co-chairs at the beginning of each meeting to remind us all why we're all here, what the purpose of this project is, and to remind members of really why we're here. All right, and if anybody has any additional questions or any potential conflicts, by all means, please feel free to reach out to our acting general counsel, David Gonzalez. His phone number is right there. And of course, you can always reach out to myself, anybody from the state team, at any time as well. Great, thank you. So now for an overview of the DRI and New York Forward program. Quick overview of roles and responsibilities. So just to quickly review the state team before. Don't think we need to go through this again, but in general, this this project is overseen by a combination of several state agencies, Department of State, Empire State Development, New York State Homes and Community Renewal, as well as aspects of NYSERDA and the Governor's Office. This is a team effort across several different New York State partner agencies, and ensuring that this is a community-driven process that is reflecting this community's goals and values. And then, of course, we have a consultant team from BFJ, who I introduced before, and within that, we have several sub-consultants who will work with this community on administering the different aspects of the strategic investment plan, which is essentially just a plan that we will come up with at the end with a slate of recommended projects. Great, thank you. And of course, we went through the members of the local planning committee. Your role is to participate in LPC meetings, discuss projects, go back, be ambassadors to your respective subcommittees within the community, and so forth. Great. So just a quick logistical thing. We would like to set the second LPC meeting to be on Monday, June 17th from 6 to 8 p.m. In general, do Mondays tend to work for this group? Yeah. Okay, great. Awesome. And the 6 to 8 time period also works? The 6 to 8. Okay, great. Awesome. And of course, if anything changes, by all means, please reach out and we can address as needed. All right, great. And one last thing, we're also proposing at this point not to have an LPC meeting in July, so it looks like our third LPC meeting would probably take place the first week of August. Great, thank you. Awesome. So what is the New York Forward? The New York Forward and the Downtown Revitalization Initiative are two complementary programs with a common goal, and that is to revitalize downtowns throughout the state of New York. These programs recognize the unique qualities and characteristics of each community that is selected to participate, with sizes of various communities varying throughout the state, and statewide investment to invigorate local and regional economies by revitalizing downtowns. In total, we have awarded $200 million in this state funding this round. And some of the goals really is to create a holistic approach to downtown revitalization. So we have creating an active downtown with a variety of uses, enhancing downtown living and quality of life, providing diverse employment opportunities, creating diverse housing opportunities for all income levels, providing enhanced public spaces that serve those of all ages and abilities, growing the local property tax base, and encouraging the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. So just as a quick overview and timeline, the community initially applied and was selected in September 2023, and this was announced in January 2024 that they had received the funding. The community, Village Mineola, prepared and submitted an application to the Regional Economic Development Committee. The REBC nominated communities, and the state announced the winners. Now, between April and May and December 2024, the local planning committee has been established. Our community vision and goals are being refined, projects are being identified and refined, and the LPC will recommend projects to the state. And this is where your focus will be throughout this process. And then between 2025 and 2030, the final plans will be submitted to the state. The state will choose to award projects, and then we'll begin the implementation process. Typically, this takes anywhere between 2 to 5 years. So we just want to give an overview of some successful projects on Long Island. Long Island has the distinct, honor really, of being the second community to fully complete all DRI projects in Westbury. This occurred just this past year. Just want to go through a bit of a quick overview. As you can see, we have examples of new housing, examples of streetscape improvement, and examples of storefront and facade improvement. This program really seeks to address downtown revitalization. We understand that it's not a one-size-fits-all type of method, and this is really to meet communities where they are and look at what the needs of each community are at this point. So just a little bit more into the planning process. As we mentioned, as we started this meeting off with a visioning exercise, we want to refine the community's vision and establish priorities from the get-go and gather input from all of you and of course the general public as well. We want to identify opportunities as well as challenges, understand Mineola's unique characteristics and key opportunities for growth and improvement. We're going to, after our projects are submitted, we will work to develop and evaluate them, which again is a slate that you will all vote on at the end of the year. And then project recommendations, recommended projects that align with the community's goals will then be recommended to the state of New York, and the state of New York will choose to award funding, that $4.5 million to divvy up between this group of projects. That is ultimately recommended by all of you. This is an 8 to 9 month time frame, as I mentioned before, that runs from roughly April to December of 2024. Each community is led by a consulting team, as we mentioned earlier, and this process helps ensure that all voices are heard and projects are carefully considered. So just going to go over some quick eligible project types. There are really a number of different things that we can do with this money, and that's very exciting. We have public improvement projects. These are streetscape improvements, parks, things that bring people in the community together. We have new development and/or existing rehabilitation of existing buildings. This could be for mixed-use, commercial, residential, non-profit, and public uses. Development and redevelopment should really result in employment opportunities, housing choice, or some other type of community service. We also have the opportunity to create a small project grant fund, which is a locally managed project matching fund that can be an amount up to $600,000 for small projects, such as facade improvements, building renovations, business assistance, or public art. And lastly, we have branding and marketing, and this is for branding and marketing projects, really one-time initiatives that the village can take on to encourage others from outside the community to come in and see Mineola for all its greatness and really market it as a place that people want to come visit, spend money in, and be a part of the community. Thank you. And this, inevitably, we have some ineligible project types and activities. Planning activities are not permitted. All New York Forward funds must be used to implement projects. Operations and maintenance funds cannot be used for ongoing or routine expenses such as staff salaries, wages, rent, utilities, and property upkeep. Pre-award costs, reimbursement for costs incurred before the completion of the strategic investment plan in December, and the announcement of funding awards is not permitted. Property acquisition, New York Forward funds cannot be used for property acquisition. Training and other program expenses, New York Forward funds cannot be used to cover continuous costs such as training costs and expenses related to existing programs. And lastly, expenses related to existing programs. It's pretty self-explanatory. And then, of course, project match requirements. So the project match, sponsors, private project sponsors must contribute a minimum of 25% of total project costs. The size, standalone New York Forward projects must be a minimum of $75,000 for the project costs. And small project fund, a simple solicitation process would occur for the small project fund if created that will run concurrently with the open call. The New York Forward community could increase the size of the small project fund from $300,000 up to $600,000, but the ban must be demonstrated to constitute that. So, how are projects identified? Projects included in the New York Forward DRI application, these are sort of things that the community has in mind already. And then, of course, we have our open call projects, which will take place typically between the second and third LBC meeting. This is the point where anybody, non-profit, private developers, and so forth, can propose projects that we would then be requesting a portion of this $4.5 million to contribute to that. To contribute to that funding. And the LBC will evaluate all projects based on the New York Forward program criteria and community goals. Not all solicited projects will be included in the final strategic investment plan that will be voted on in November. And as mentioned before, the open call for projects, this again provides an opportunity for community members to submit projects for consideration. This project fund will be open roughly 4 to 6 weeks, and applicants must complete a submission form with required information. And this will be available online, and we also have available hard copies. And we're really looking for projects that are ready to be implemented in the near term, that are transformational and are feasible. And how are projects evaluated? First, we look at their alignment with local and state goals. Projects must advance the goals established by the LPC and the New York Forward community. They must have a catalytic effect. Projects must have a significant positive impact on the revitalization of downtown Mineola. Project readiness. Projects should be well developed and ready to proceed as soon as funding is awarded. Eligible project costs, this again must be an eligible project for this program. Cost effectiveness, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. This must be a good use of funds, and co-benefits. Projects must result in benefits to the community beyond just the project developer, such as additional economic activity and improved quality of life for members of the community and beyond. Great. So this is just a quick example of the evaluation worksheet. As you can see, we look into aspects of community support, project readiness, catalytic effect, co-benefits, and cost effectiveness, as we just discussed. We will discuss it. We will all discuss this over the next few months in order to figure out what projects really fit the bill for what we want to see and what kind of outcome Mineola wants to get out of the program. And the end goal of the planning process, we're looking for a consensus on a recommended list of projects for implementation. This will then be turned into the strategic investment plan. This contains the recommended list of projects. This again is submitted to the state of New York, and it will create momentum and direction for the New York Forward program. And the final slate of recommended projects takes into consideration feedback from the public as well as the LPC. The total amount of requested New York Forward funds will have a higher dollar amount than what will be awarded. So we look at things, funding requests received, the target range, and the ultimate New York Forward award. And what happens after the planning process ends? Well, the state will then take the SIP and we will evaluate recommended projects. Funding announcements will then be made by the state of New York. Contracts will then be executed between state agencies and project sponsors, so the different partner agencies that I mentioned earlier. And project implementation reporting will take place on that 2 to 5 year window while we complete this process. And project implementation. All awards provided are as a reimbursement grant. Project sponsors must complete work before monies are provided. Project sponsor will likely secure bridge financing to cover costs of which project will be completed. And all awards are subject to state requirements. This includes MWB equals, competitive procurement, and so forth. All right, next on to all of you. You're remembered. Yeah, sure, that's a good idea. We'll just take this moment to pause for questions. Do any of you have any questions or thoughts?
Well, just kind of incredible amount of information. Any questions?
Just have one question,
Sure.
if I can. When it comes time to reimbursement, let's say a private entity goes forward and pays for something, will they get approval knowing that the reimbursement is going to be the right percentage beforehand, or do they have to take their chances later?
Do you mean once a project is selected and they are chosen to execute
Right.
contracts in New York? So once a contract is executed with the state of New York, then they will have the opportunity to put in for reimbursable costs. Each agency has their own method for doing so. I can only speak to the Department of States, but we do have individuals here from FRC Development in case they would like to chime in.
Tom, it'll be a contract. If it's if it's $25,000 on a $100,000 project, they spend $100,000, meet all the requirements of the contract, they're going to get $25,000. Yeah. But yes, they'll know what it is.
And they can spend the money, if they spend the money before the contract, it's not.
Right.
So, I guess I do have one question on eligibility. So, because I recognize that this has to do with property acquisition not being something that is eligible, which makes sense to me because as great as $5.4 million is, it can go very quickly. So how does that ineligible status work when you are looking to maybe develop a site as the application has nominated a particular site's location for something? So what is that? What could that be spent on if not property acquisition?
So property acquisition could be part of the total project, and that would be funded by another source, whether it's the developer themselves or another source of state or federal, whatever funding. It just can't be funded by this program. So it can be part of the entire project cost, and actually that's helpful because you're leveraging other funding sources beyond forward. As you mentioned, $4.5 million will go pretty quickly when you start to get big projects in there.
Any questions?
Rachel, I have a question. It seems to me that the 4 to 6 week window for call for projects seems like kind of tight. What if we don't get enough during that period of time? Can we extend it? Because that's a lot. There are people who are just learning about this now, and we're saying that in 2 months we're going to give them a 4 to 6 week window in the middle of the summer to think of projects that qualify. So is that like a hard 4 to 6 weeks, or is that kind of a moving target if we don't get enough?
It's a tough balance. I will say a couple things. The open call is meant to be very easy and straightforward to complete. It's not meant to be a burden. It really is meant to just get your kind of foot in the door, indicate if you're interested in doing a project, get a little bit of a sense of what the project is, and just really start that process. So hopefully that window of time is enough to give people that time. That being said, it's never fully closed until we get toward the end of the process. At a point, you can't accept new projects because there's just not time to develop them and do all the vetting that needs to happen. But certainly, if a great project comes along in September, you don't want to leave it on the table necessarily. So that will be considered, and we've done that in years past. We just try to structure a process that is straightforward and everybody's playing by those rules, but there is some flexibility.
And I guess a follow-up question would be, during that open call, someone that submitted a project, they could always withdraw if they find that this is not worth
They
it.
can withdraw, they can adapt to
I think the timeline is important to keep remembering. So for basically LPC number 3 in August, that would be the time that we would come back and present what has been submitted as part of the call process. And that's at that stage we kind of evaluate as a group with your input, you know, how robust response we got.
Just to add one thing, rest assured, we will do a lot of outreach to different communities. All of you as members of the local planning committee, one thing that we will ask is that you go back to your communities and promote this program, let people know that there is a call for people to submit projects. And as Susan mentioned, it's really to get your foot in the door. BFJ, we will all work with the proposed projects to make sure they're up to par in order to be eventually voted on in the fall. So
That's one of our major goals, is to work with the project sponsors.
awesome. Anything else? Yes, Susan.
Could you explain a little further what other monies, what other programs work in concert with this particular program and this group? So we can just share that.
Certainly. So the $4.5 million, so I just want to make sure I'm understanding your question correctly. The $4.5 million is independent. Certainly we have examples where where communities will receive local grants and ultimately will have different grants working in concert with each other. But ultimately, the $4.5 million, we should think of it as sort of standalone at this point in terms of what we want to do and how we want to spend it. Now, there are examples of communities that once they're awarded funding, they may have CDBG fundings that they use to help fund different projects. You know, it sort of depends on the situation, I would say, is the best way to describe it. But I think the best way to look at it for now is to look at the $4.5 million and think about how best we can allocate that towards different projects within the community.
So is it fair to say that the reason the folks at Fire State Development and those other state agencies that also have lots of money are plugged into this process is to see if some of the things that we come up with align to their funding priorities and they kind of get a preview in advance of what Mineola's got going on and maybe want a joint party?
I guess that's a way of looking at it. I think that the best way to think of it is that each individual agency has its own purview. The Department of State does a lot of planning work, Fire State Development does a lot of capital development, HR does a lot of housing. So when contracts are awarded, projects are ultimately selected, different agencies will take on different projects depending on what best works with their purview. As I mentioned, you know, DOS does a lot of the streetscaping and planning. Fire State Development does a lot with private development, and HCR does a lot with different aspects of housing and so forth. So, yeah.
So maybe yes.
Yes, I guess. Soft, yeah. Well, I think if you don't have any other questions, I think we can move on and we can go more into your role as members of the LPC. So what is the Local Planning Committee? This is a group of diverse community and regional stakeholders nominated by the municipality and others and confirmed by New York State. You will all act as ambassadors of this program and to your respective communities, whether that's the PTA or your church or different communities within Mineola. This is part of the reason we want a diverse sort of stakeholders. We want to be people who aren't traditionally engaged in processes like this for whatever reason. It is led by our two co-chairs, typically local chief elected official and member of the RDC, so Mayor Ferreira and Lisa Cooper. And we ensure that the community vision is met and the public interest is served. And your ultimate responsibility is to identify the best ways to communicate and engage with your community. We recommend key stakeholders and groups that you should hear from. Oftentimes we'll set up stakeholder groups that we'll meet with. We try to really conduct a listening tour, getting to hear what people want, whether it's first responders, young people, senior citizens, you'll provide guidance and direction on documents. These are the projects that will be reviewed and help identify potential projects for funding as well. The most important thing is that you're going to offer input and assist with project evaluation and selection. We want you to be active participants in this process. There's a reason why all of you are recommended and confirmed. We believe that you're all up to the task, and we look forward to hearing what you have to say.
We'll be getting homework.
Yes. There will be some reading.
Not
Nothing too terrible, I promise. Generally, monthly meetings will occur monthly. They last anywhere between an hour and a half to 2 hours. We try to be mindful of your time. Regular emails from the state of New York, as well as our representatives and BFJ with me materials will be provided to you. You will provide assistance and participation in public engagement sessions, which we'll touch on in a bit, and provide input on documents prepared by our consultants on BFJ and their sub-consultants. And we discussed a bit of a schedule before. We can go back to that if need be. And just to remember, as members of the local planning committee, you are ambassadors of this program. We ask you to please keep in mind the code of conduct. Please remember to behave responsibly. Remember that you are in many ways representing this program to your communities. And just yes, remain civil in discussions, which I'm sure you would be anyway. And to be polite to all participants. All right, next, public engagement. So this is a truly critical component of the LPC process. This is generally led by our consulting team, and I'll have you guys say a word in a second. This takes place throughout the process and is tailored specifically to each community's needs. We mentioned before, meeting with different sort of constituent groups to have events where communities can come, where the community can come in and label which projects they like, discuss ideas, and give their feedback. Activities should encourage participation from a broad and diverse population within the community. And this is not just residents, it's not just, homeowners, it's everybody, it's students, it's people who work here, it's people who visit here, who play here, a number of different things. Great. And, public engagement is really essential to this process because it helps craft the downtown's vision, goals, and strategies. While you're all tremendous representation of the downtown, we also want to hear from all of you and in crafting this project and this strategic investment plan. We provide input on project types and community needs and feedback on proposed projects and transformative potential within the downtown. So different methods of public engagement, of course, LPC meetings, the open call projects, as we mentioned before. There will be 2 public workshops, one which is more of a public immersion period, and the latter is a public workshop that will take place in the fall. Local outreach activities, tabling at different community events, farmers markets, Mineola Day and so forth, and then of course online engagement, polls, surveys, meeting people where they are. And we want to just ask, in all of your opinion, are there any important community or stakeholders that we should be reaching out to? We've been working very closely with Mayor Pereira and Ryan and the whole team to sort of identify these needs, but we'd like to hear from you what you think some of those groups would be.
Well, will you do a mailing? Will there be either a flyer or something that goes out to either residents or businesses or both? So maybe, sometimes, even though online is wonderful, being able to hold something in your hand, look at it, stick it wherever, so that this way, this is an opportunity. And sometimes people who have funds or who have, a goal may not be looking online at that time, but if you mail it to them or you give it to them, or if people are going to go door to door, and then it's a face that they can connect with an image and mission, then it's more personal. So I think being on a personal relationship, I think reaching out at different things. I know our neighbor always has different things for us in the neighborhood, which is wonderful. And so that's a good way of meeting people, but you can also do a mailing or go door to door. I think that would be beneficial.
That's a great idea, thank you. Anybody else?
And I think that when we submit, so that you understand the process, we submitted about 24 names to the state, and in the state, went through the list and they decided. But I think we have a good cross-section of just about every community in the village. That doesn't mean that there may not be a component that is not represented here on the LPC, but the public can certainly participate as well. You could think of the public as a member of the LPC as well. We did have initially a member of one of our senior groups who unfortunately decided that she would not be able to do that. So, and we do have one person who is not here today because she's she's away, but she'll be here at the next meeting. So I think you'll see a wide, although many of us that we graduated from Mineola High School, we all wear different hats, and I think we all have our feet in different communities and different organizations. Some of them cultural, some of them, academic, schools, and law enforcement, first responders, businesses, the hospital, of course, represented. We thought that was important. So I think we have a good cross section, but that doesn't mean that we may not be missing a certain segment of the community, and then that is our job to make sure that that segment of the community is represented. And we'll be doing outreach to our senior groups, to our Chamber of Commerce, and we have a lot of events coming up, and we've asked the committee and the state to be present, whether they be at our farmers market, wellness and artisan fair, or our parades, or carnivals, or anything like that. You'll see them quite often, and you'll see us. So you'll be tired of us by December.
Is the NTA or Max Bus included in these?
So the MTA is not this, and what was the second agency?
Not the bus.
Oh, the bus. Oh, nice bus. Thank you. Sorry, I was a bit hard for a second. These are certainly groups that we can consult and we have the different parent agencies on the program, but, we do work very closely with the MTA. We do work very closely with Nassau County, depending on the project, so those are definitely groups that we can engage. And one thing that we're going to go over a little bit is the actual New York forwarding area, which, you'll see the boundaries and how it interacts with the railroad and with different bus lines, to see if these are different things that we'll have to, that we'll try to work with. Great. Anything else, or I think we're good to move on?
Okay.
Yes, I'm
Can
sorry.
you prepare a leaflet that we can give out to the various communities that we're part of? They're meeting now, right? Something's going to come up with their lose them. So it would be really good, not this. Not this.
Understand.
But it's just the basics as to how they can apply, what's not permitted, what is permitted. And leave on one page, and then we can give that out at our various community groups. People will take a look at it and get some answers. So it's fun.
Yes, absolutely. That's a great idea. We could definitely prepare something like that, and we can also provide digital copies as well in case you want to share online with their networks or your email lists. However, we communicate in many different ways now. So that's a great idea. Thank you very much. All right, great. I think we're going to move on. So next are open call for projects. Sorry.
No.
Oh, all right. So our open call hearing, we did allude to this a little bit earlier. Both private, nonprofit, as well as public entities are eligible to submit applications. This can be, Nassau County, the Village of Mineola. This can be developers. This can be nonprofit organizations. The most important thing is that their proposed vision and idea has to have some sort of transformational or catalytic effect on the community, something that will improve the quality of life in Mineola. It's intended to ensure that all businesses or owners are properly afforded an opportunity to submit projects. We're looking for projects that are well-defined and ready to be implemented in the short term, who are ready to really hit the ground running once funding is awarded. And application forms will be available both online and in person. We can discuss different places we can meet these forms in person a little bit later. And the submission time frame about 2 weeks. But realistically, the open call period is probably going to run about a month or a little over a month between our second and third meeting. Yes.
Is there, for the folks who may have an idea and want to avail themselves of the open call, is there any kind of technical assistance for them in making the application, or are they left wholly on their own?
Yes, we are here to give technical assistance. In years past, we've done that, whether it's in person drop-in office hours, or there's also, we can do it virtually. That's both ways have been done. With the intent of being here and available, people who have questions and need a little bit of help filling in the application. That's one of our goals as well.
Let's go. I'm glad to hear that, because I think when people hear there's a process, they may have a great idea, they may have heart and intent, they may have means, but the process is too overwhelming, they may shy away from it.
Yeah, we always work closely with members of the community and potential project sponsors to just encourage people to submit something. Even if it feels like if it's like the back of a napkin, submit something. It may not turn out to be a project, but it may turn out to be a great project. And we and the LPC will work with those people to help shape that project.
Thank you. One more idea? Tapping into the by mail notification, the two state legislators who supported the application, they'll be sending out newsletters. This is not politics, but it's a re-election year, so you can be sure they're going to be sending out newsletters. And maybe we can get them to put a simple box in their mailing to refer people to our website. They don't have to go into any detail, they don't have to take up any space, I'm sure there's 1,000 things they want to say, but just a little box referring them to our website.
Yes, sir, that's definitely something we can look into. You know, any sort of government newsletter or anything like that they would send out that's not political, that's absolutely something we can certainly look into. That's a great idea. Thank you again.
Yeah, we send out a quarterly newsletter, and we'll be sure to include that in every one from now until the end of the process. Yeah, just a couple of questions. So when we say nonprofits, religious institutions, would be included in that, or no?
I think that was it. Yeah.
Okay, so because I know that, Willis Avenue is kind of known as the avenue of churches, and we do have a lot of churches that may or may not have ideas for projects. I just wanted to make sure that they are covered up in nonprofits. What about schools?
Yes.
Sorry, I keep taking it, Rachel, just because we've worked on multiple rounds of DRI and now the second round of New York Forward, so we've experienced this. We've had a school before that I believe they were in the final plan, and they had solar panels on the roof that basically would cover all of their power usage for most of the district. So that was a potential project. And then we have had a church before who was doing some physical building improvements that would support some of their programming that was for the community. It's a bit of a tougher sell, I would say, because it needs to have a connection to downtown revitalization, which a church might, but it really depends on the program and the project that they're proposing. And it needs to have a physical aspect too. So in this case, they were doing something to their building which had a programmatic impact, but also aesthetic in front of the downtown. So it's possible.
Absolutely. We understand that, religious institutions and schools have different services to the community, whether it be a food bank or, a daycare and any number of things. So it's definitely something we can evaluate depending on the project. So just a quick overview, just some different aspects of the submission form. We ask the project, of course, contact information, the location, any existing conditions, title and description, property ownership, funding estimate, capacity, readiness, time frame of implementation, and supplemental information. One thing we also ask is that private developers, that we ask they can demonstrate, if they don't have the funding available already, that they can demonstrate a way to obtain that funding by the time the project is awarded. So now I think I'm going to pass it off to BFJ to go over some aspects of Mineola's New York Forward application. Thank you. Go ahead.
So how many projects can one developer pass? For example, can they do numerous different ones?
I don't believe there's a limit on the number that any developer can do, but of course we want to look at, sort of the validity of the projects. We want to encourage diverse,
Somebody has a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely something that this group will discuss. We want to make sure that it's true that there are developers that can afford to build their projects and don't necessarily need New York funding to help them do it. We want to make sure that this funding is used to really do the most benefit for the community and help projects get built that may not necessarily otherwise be built.
So you really want those companies that can do the whole thing?
Well, not necessarily. Of course, again, as members of the LPC, we'll discuss.
We have to approve it, right?
Yeah.
So we as a committee, obviously, so as I said before, we're probably going to send more projects up than we can fund. So let's say we send 8 or 9, but realistically, we may only get 4 or 5 of them funded. We're not going to send 8. I would think that we're not going to send up 8 or 9 to the same 2 people, right? We're all here to balance things, and that's why we have the business community and the school community, the culture community, the first responder community, hospital representatives, because everyone's going to go back to their constituents, for lack of a better word. And remember, we, the village, we're in this game too. quick. I mean, I got lots of ideas. So, yeah, I have 8. So yeah, well, anyway, we can send up 8. It's all right. But yes, we obviously we're cognizant of that, and I don't think that this is not something that developers with deep pockets can. They can pay for their own projects, without us. But that doesn't mean that if they have a great idea that we can all benefit from as a community, that at least I would entertain that. But I think that it won't be, a two-horse race.
And I'm glad that you brought this up because this is something that the LPC should be cognizant of. As members of this committee, you have the authority to mention concerns like this when project developers come forward. It's very possible that a developer could come forward with 3 or 4 projects that they want to get built, that they may have the money to do themselves. And these are concerns that you can raise, that all of you can raise and discuss.
And the other thing that this will all become more clear as we get actual projects to discuss is we want to be thinking about how the projects interact with each other, right? So you've got one project way up at one end of the study area, and another project at the other end. They're not necessarily engaging with each other and catalyzing each other. So that's something that you want to think about when you think about your collection of projects in the slate. It's how do they kind of build off of each other and strengthen each other. It's more than the sum of their parts. So we're going to stop talking about process, even though it's super important, and this presentation is going to be up online. We will review a lot of this information more as we go down for all of our future meetings. You'll hear it again because these specific technical components are very important, right? The rules of the game. But now we're going to talk about Mineola and your application and the study area, and hear a little bit from you about the vision. So the village submitted what you see here in this map as the proposed boundary for the New York Forward program. You have to have a boundary to really establish where your projects are going to come from. Every project that is in the strategic investment plan has to be within this study area. Now, it can be revised, and that has happened in prior rounds. Generally, pretty minor revisions, though. So a great project comes in, and it's 2 blocks just outside the study area. You as a committee can discuss, should we expand the study area? Should we reduce the study area? But generally, this is the area that has been proposed initially. It's basically just south of the railroad tracks, north of Old Country Road, basically Jericho Turnpike to the north, except for a little spur towards Willis Avenue. And you can see it really includes the core of downtown Mineola. I will say it's pretty big comparatively to some of the other New York Forward and DRI study areas. So one thing that you all can think about is, do we need all of this area? There are a lot of portions of the study area, and you all have the larger versions in front of you.
Yeah, there's a copy right here.
Yeah, if you want to take a closer look. There are residential neighborhoods that probably, I suspect, will not be New York Forward projects. They're well-established single-family neighborhoods. Do they need to be in the study area? So that's something to think about. It's really a balance. You want to have enough of a size that you can get a good collection of projects, right? You don't want to make the study area too small and then you struggle to get projects. But if it's very big, you could start to dilute the impact. As I mentioned before, you might have something way at one end and another end, and they're not really interacting with each other, those 2 projects. But this is currently the study area, and we can talk a little bit as we get into more discussion tonight and even in future meetings about, does this need to stay or do we need to make some adjustments here?
This is a question, just so that everybody understands. It has to be contiguous.
Yes.
So that was my question, because we could look at those of us that live in Mineola, we kind of realize that we have 2 downtowns, the traditional historic downtown around Main Street, and then the Jericho Turnpike corridor. So it would be nice if we could just make 2 of these, but it is required to be contiguous, hence why during our application we made it this large. But we certainly can entertain scaling it back, let's say west of Mineola Boulevard, and not include those residential areas. But if we want to pick up Jericho Turnpike, if we want to pick up Willis Avenue up to the Irish Society, then we do have to have it be contiguous. And for those of you who can't see the map behind us, it essentially goes from the US Bay line to Marcellus Road in the west, and then from Old Country Road to Jericho Turnpike in the south and the north, with that little piece up Willis Avenue to the village line in Wilson Park. So So that's why it's that big, because it had to be contiguous.
So any initial thoughts on this study area, thinking about potential projects that could be in the area? I know you're just seeing it for the first time, so we can come back to that. But this is really going to be kind of our foundation and baseline for this project. So now you have a lot of words in front of you. This is, and I think all members of the LPC have this in your package, and we also emailed it earlier today, so we're not blindsided by a big paragraph on the slide. This is really another starting point. A key starting point is the vision statement. The New York Forward program, the strategic investment plan, needs to be grounded in a vision, and from the vision, we will help, and with the community engagement, and what we hear from you in the LPC, we will help craft a set of strategies and goals, and those are what the projects need to be directly tied back to. So the vision is the foundation, and then your goals and strategies, and then your projects. If we are having a project that doesn't connect with any kind of goal or strategy, but it's a great project, then that's probably telling us that we need to tweak our goals and strategies. And likewise, if we have an important goal or strategy that we really want to further, but we don't have a project with it, that's maybe telling us that we don't have all of our projects that we need. You know, we maybe need to think a little bit more holistically and go out and try to solicit some more ideas. So it is important as a beginning to this planning process. So I'm not going to read all of these words, but they are directly from the village's application. The village had to create, you know, a draft vision statement to win this grant. So it is a good starting point. It really does touch, I think, on a lot of the assets that Mineola has and where you are today. And we've kind of bolded some words that we think about. It's really about the future, what the future vision is. You know, it's really about an anchor destination, bringing people into your downtown. People who maybe live here but aren't spending a lot of time here. So creating more of a destination for your own residents as well as neighboring communities. Revitalizing their storefronts, upgrading lighting, developing a green space or a public space somewhere in the downtown, and then looking at your signage. These were things that the application called out as important aspects of the vision. You know, really making it a go-to place where people want to come and spend time in. So from that, we will be working after this meeting and certainly after our first public workshop, what we hear directly from the community. We're going to try to trim this down a little bit. I will say the state's guidance is that it should be about 2 to 4 sentences, I think. And so we want it to be maybe a little bit punchier. The seeds are all here. You know, we're really going to kind of try to refine that based directly on what we hear from you all and the community. But one of the things that we've really pulled out of the application that I think ties directly to the vision statement is it's really about a people-oriented environment. So bringing the people, again, activity down here, having people feel like there's something for them to do, and it's a safe and comfortable environment. I mean, there's a lot of offerings, both in terms of restaurants and also just activity and life. So these are kind of a lot of buzzwords, but they're really, they're important to start crafting this, again, baseline vision that is then going to tie directly to the projects. Any questions on kind of where we are in vision? Okay. Yes?
The highlighting that we did on the prior page was almost exactly what I highlighted.
Oh, good.
With one exception, just one man's opinion. Walkable is included in that paragraph, and I do think has to be part of what we advocate. I think a lot of the other, I think the vision statement is generally good, but some of it is descriptive of why we should win the award versus
Yes.
what we should be going forward. And I think if we draw the line somewhere close to there, we might be able to do that sooner than later.
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, this helped you win the award, and now when you got the award, let's refine it a little bit and make it connect with the projects. It's a great point. Mineola is very walkable, and that's one of your strengths.
Well, actually, what I was saying is
It could be more.
the downtown is not so walkable in some spots.
Yes. We
And
were.
I say that because I walk a lot.
Yes, that's great. We were fortunate enough to spend much of the day on Thursday out here, so we walked a lot. I think we're killing it. But we feel like we really, you know, we understand it a lot better. And you're right, it's walkable, and there are areas where it can be better. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, so this is, the next few slides kind of highlight a number of opportunities and challenges. And some of this is directly from the application, some of it's a little bit of our own interpretation of what we've learned so far, very early in the process. But just to name out a few of the, you know, the assets and opportunities to kind of tell this going forward. We do want to say, even tonight's turnout, we can see that there is strong commitment to enhance local quality of life in Mineola, and there's a strong sense of community pride, and that's a great thing for this project. Additionally, Mineola, I think it's really important to mention that the village has done a lot in recent years that will serve as a certain baseline. The timing is right for New York Fort in many ways. And with that, there is quite substantial recent and impending population and job growth. The village has worked very thoughtfully to create new housing in the downtown area, and that's a great kind of thing to plan around. Is with the new housing that has come downtown, how can the downtown environment, both whether it's improving the safety of streets or the small business offerings, what are the considerations to support a downtown population? Also to mention that Mineola has a really vibrant downtown during the work hours. We've heard a lot even initially that there's a substantial foot traffic in the downtown area during weekdays during the day, staff lunch breaks, etc. But in evening hours, it can maybe be a little bit more quiet, and there's some considerations there to kind of play around. Other opportunities, of course, Mineola has a lot of transit resources. It's very transit rich between the station area that has had recent improvements that are really substantial. It's a hub, it's a transit hub. Also the nice bus center, and just a number of very key roadways that can pass through and along downtown. There's been a number of recent infrastructure improvements, even thinking to sanitary sewer infrastructure projects that kind of lay a certain groundwork for good high quality infrastructure. And as I mentioned before, the village there's a lot of thoughtful policies in place to kind of that have laid a groundwork for for the downtown area that we can move forward on and continue community dialogue around what the community wants in the downtown area. And also just to mention, there is a diverse range of small businesses, whether it's shops, small retail restaurants, but also professional offices that call downtown Mineola home. There's a lot of considerations there. Some challenges, these are all kind of related. But one of the main things we've heard a lot about, and is even evident in application, is that there is a limited number of public spaces in the downtown area. I mean, if you look at the map, of course, there's Memorial Park to the kind of westerly area, but other existing parks or even plaza areas are very limited. So it really kind of raises the question of where are potential opportunities to create downtown parks, public spaces, and even thinking to streets and sidewalks as an important piece of the public realm. Whether it's the design of those areas, ways to make them safer for pedestrians, but that is an important part of the public realm. Another challenge to mention is just the question about branding. There is a project that was mentioned, project idea mentioned in the New York Fort application for a bit of a branding marketing strategy for downtown. And there's a lot of pieces that can go into that, whether it's the kind of web presence for downtown, whether it's signage downtown, but how there's a whole package of tools that is out there for downtown areas and for municipalities to consider, and how an image is created, and how that is kind of communicated across materials. And then just to mention, thinking of the physical environment, a number of visual and physical barriers downtown. One of the greatest assets of Mineola is the train station, you could say, or some might think so. But there are some barriers in terms of that kind of moving across the downtown area. And then even if with our study area, if we're thinking about the kind of historic core downtown versus further northwest Jericho, the questions of connectivity within the finalized New York Fort study area, and how we can think about it being continuous and think about connections within the area. And just to kind of highlight the small business environment, there are, from my standpoint, I'll just mention, I don't think there's a huge number of vacancy issues. It's all relative, what you consider to be big issues, vacancies, but regardless, there are vacancies in the downtown area. That's a challenge in any community. Also competition with neighboring municipalities. We know that there's many residents who go elsewhere for shopping or for dining, and there's an opportunity to think how downtown Mineola can actually retain residents and even bring in visitors to the downtown area and be a place that people come to shop and dine in the evening. And I see some head nodding. So this second point, this third point kind of matches that, just the sentiment again where, even with recent developments, there can be a lack of aging foot traffic to support small business in downtown. And finally here, just to mention, the village has done a lot with facade improvements, a lot of great work in recent years, but there's, this can be resource intensive, and there's a lot to think through in terms of furthering those efforts and extending it to more small businesses. So this slide, we're not going to get into the details of each project, and I would say first and foremost because these are not official projects, these are project ideas that were submitted by the village in the application. But those ideas, just to kind of get us thinking about, and just to remind everybody, there really are the kind of two categories of project types. There's public projects and there's private projects. And yes, nonprofit also is another category. But in terms of public projects, this is what the village had included in the application. The first project idea was to encourage the redevelopment of vacant, non-conforming commercial properties in the downtown area. Number two was to create a downtown open space plaza or village green. Of course, a lot of questions with that one in terms of actual location and finding the site to do so, but it's an idea that we wanted to talk about, PC about, and explore. Number three is to continue to expand the commercial facade rehabilitation program in the downtown. Number four is to improve lighting in downtown Missoula. This kind of ties into the next one, which is to improve walkability in the public realm, so streetscapes, sidewalks. Also to improve public and wayfinding signage in the downtown, also very tied into the streetscape piece. And finally, to create and implement a downtown marketing and business promotion campaign. A lot can go into that, but that's a consideration.
Just to add to that, another, I think, key role that we play as consultants is helping shape these projects, whether they're these or other ideas, into really great projects that are in the strategic investment plan that make it very difficult for the state to determine which ones they're going to cut. We want them all to look really great. And so, we may help shape that by combining some ideas. So, for example, 4, 5, and 6, they're all kind of public realm type projects. So we might look at a project on a particular corridor or stretch of the corridor, and it's improving the sidewalks and benches and wayfinding signage and lighting, and it's sort of a package, right? And that becomes a very compelling project that then you can go forward to the state and you show exactly all the support that you have from the community, and you have cost estimates of that, and you show the catalytic impact that will have on the larger community. So this is again the start with the ideas and all the ideas that will come, and then when you see the final strategic investment plan, you see how they all kind of function together and work together.
I have a question. So, as far as downtown and finding spaces for, it is tight, finding spaces for walkways, for benches, Sina and I briefly discussed, a lot of our children went to Hillside Avenue, Wilson Park, to go walk there because it was a little more open, and they could sit and have their ice cream or whatever. If we could get that downtown, we would probably need a traffic study. We would probably need an accounting of all of the vacant buildings that we do have. Like we need some kind of, what are we working with to be able to pitch it to somebody like, hey, this is a great area. This can be done, and traffic study supports it or whatever things have to be done as far as that to make it more friendly.
Yeah, it's a great point, and I think you mentioned the traffic study. It kind of also, once we get into the process, we understand what the opportunities are for, in this case, a specific location for, let's say, a park or streetscape enhancements. It's kind of a triage of what the next steps are. What are the locations that are, as Rachel kind of explained, the most shovel-ready that could be implementable within roughly a 2-year time frame. In some cases where the determination is made that it's not quite doable within that range of time, the final plan, what we're calling the strategic investment plan, really becomes an opportunity for us to have both projects that are recommended for funding, but also kind of other visionary items that we suggest for future thought or future carry through. And sometimes, also to mention, a lot of these projects, our team, like Susan was explaining, we both have sub-consultants who are involved. There's an urban designer who is in particular very, will be very detailed in any kind of public realm projects. If there's a public space or a streetscape idea, that's a consultant, because it's a public project, they're on board to help create a vision and rough design or rendering for that. But another thing that we're doing as a consultant team is a number of stakeholder calls, for example, if it's a county roadway, for example, that really requires coordination because the county or even the state have jurisdiction for the key roadway, that's the case for many roadways in downtown Mineola. We will be in touch with the county to kind of propose an idea and to see their reactions. And more often than not, in cases they do require further study, right? But there's still things that can be done in a shorter term kind of range.
So if I can add, recently we approved at a village board meeting funds for the appraisal of certain property in the downtown for the village to appraise it to see if we could purchase it or get a grant for it. Now, obviously not here because that's not allowed, but we are thinking of ways where we could do that, build green park. We've also in our application put in widening sidewalks and bumping out at the corners so that the distance of crossing a street is much shorter than it currently is, so bump outs at the corners. I've mentioned things like having retractable street barriers that when we do have concerts or we want to make it walkable on weekends, we can put these barriers up so that we don't just put up a fire truck or put up the stuff that we put up for the parades, but something more permanent, something safer. So those are some of the ideas that we presented in our application. But yeah, along the lines of, unfortunately, when Mineola was designed, especially downtown, it grew organically, and so the sidewalks are tight, the streets are narrow, and as was mentioned, people don't realize this, but First Street, Second Street, Mineola Boulevard, Willis Avenue, and Main Street are all county roads. So for us to be able to do something, we obviously have to get the county on board. Thankfully, we know who our legislator is, and hopefully he'll work with us to help us achieve our goals. But that's what we want to do, and we are beginning that process. One of the other reasons why the boundary was so large is to include more businesses for our facade improvement program, because the community development block grants limits us to where we can do it and can't do it. So some areas are, some areas are not eligible. This kind of makes that entire area eligible if we decide to do that. Correct, Tom?
Right, absolutely.
Okay. So yeah, we're thinking of those things and any ideas that we have, but my vision is to widen the sidewalks, make it walkable, perhaps make it seasonally closed off to traffic, but for that we need the county's approval, we need a traffic study. We'd obviously, the hospital figures into this because they need access to their emergency department. But those are the ideas that I have. Currently we have 3 concerts down there, and we're going to have 2 other events down there, but I want to make it more, or we, the board, wants to make it a more regular occurrence.
Well, if you have to embrace the urban part of it, us being art people, you can always go along with something that's like a highland. If you have a highland where now, maybe you're not just on ground, maybe you elevate it, and then you go a different route.
We actually, so we took about a 2.5 hour walk on Thursday. I walked them to death all around.
It was great. It was a great exercise.
So we took them everywhere, and interestingly enough, that kind of came up because what everyone knows as Hink Way has become obsolete because of the building of the underground tunnel, if you will, underpass up Willis Avenue. So Hink Way, the road, is no longer accessible or usable. We even thought about making that like a high-line-ish kind of park, if you will. And you might say, well, that's between the railroad and the Colonel Western Reef. But, in 1980, people were ready to demolish the High Line because it was this eyesore, and now it is probably the most popular attraction in New York City. So if you think about it, all those things are on the table. And the street's there already, we don't have to buy it. Right, it's ours.
I should just add, there will be a brief public comment session at the end of this meeting tonight, so we look forward to hearing from you guys. Just hang tight for just a little bit longer, okay?
We're getting to the end. Thanks for your patience. So yes, what's next? So we will be sharing, if we have not already, the guidance document with all of you. It's actually, it's long, but it's a really fantastic resource. It'll tell you everything that you want to know about this process, what should the plan look like, what goes into the plan. We refer to it all the time, so it's really helpful. It'll be up on the website as well. The Mineola New York Forward application is on the project website, which for everybody on the LPC and the public is mineolanyf.com. It's live. You can go there tonight. And this presentation from this meeting, as well as just a summary of this meeting, will be up there shortly as well. That's really going to be like your landing page for everything related to the New York Forward process. So everything will be put there so that you don't have to come to necessarily every meeting, or if you miss something or you want to share that with a friend, it'll be on the website as well. So members of the LPC, if you have not already, please do review, sign, and return the code of conduct. We'll make sure you do. And I'm sure Rachel will hound you until you turn it in, but that is very important, so thank you for that. We do have a very busy upcoming set of weeks. We have set our second LPC meeting on June 17th, here again, same time, same place. August, we will set that date. We'll start sending out some proposed dates to the LPC so you can get them all in your calendars. Generally, it seems like this space works pretty well for this meeting. It seems like it's easy for everybody to find and get to. So we'll probably stay here, and likely for the public workshops too. It's ample, so this is a really great resource to have. So we are jumping right in on community engagement. We are looking at a public workshop likely here on May 23rd, which is just a couple weeks away. And really that workshop, we will not have much prepared. We are really here to listen to the community and to help the vision process. So present a little bit about the information that you've heard tonight in an abbreviated way, and really hear directly from the community. What are their ideas? What would they like to see change, stay the same? What are the highest priorities? So that's going to be a really important event for the larger community. And then in tandem with that workshop that week, we are looking at other opportunities to be here and visible and engaged with the community. I know there's a Chamber of Commerce meeting on the 21st. We'll probably go to that. There is a Golden Age Club meeting, I think the last one before you break for the summer, on the morning of the 23rd, so that's a great opportunity. We are going to be looking to engage with students, high school students most likely. We want to engage also with NYU folks who work and learn at the facilities here. We talked about first responders, so we'll be engaging with all of these groups and more, whether they're meetings out in person or Zoom calls. We really want to be engaging with a wide variety of folks in Mineola.
I should just add that again, we briefly went over and has there are many thoughts and ideas of different community groups that we should engage. If any others come to mind, please, I'm going to leave my information with all of you. Please, by all means, reach out to us. We want to make sure we're meeting everybody where they are, especially if there are any communities that are potentially not English speaking. We want to make sure that we are contacting those individuals as well.
Thank you, absolutely. And as I mentioned, the website really is going to be your place to go to find out everything that's going on with New York Forward. So we'll be putting things up there like the visioning survey, which we'll be launching about the same time as the public workshop, really meant to be a companion piece to the in-person meeting, something that people can do a little bit over the summer and start to really inform the crafting of that vision statement.
And of course, also meeting materials. So after every LPC meeting, roughly the next day, the next couple days, we'll have posted meeting notes as well as the slides.
And so with that, I'm going to hopefully stop talking at you so much and hear from you. We showed this set of 2 questions at the beginning of this meeting, and we gave you all some post-it notes. We want to really take some time and maybe pause for a few minutes and think about what you as a committee, the LPC, think about the downtown. We'll repeat again the question. So thinking about, for you personally, what do you see as the heart of downtown Mineola? Having looked at the study area, where specifically would you really think is like your favorite place? What's an important community gathering place? And then maybe a little bit along that might need some improvement. And then the second question is thinking more broadly about the vision. So really thinking about your priorities in terms of short-term and long-term. Where do you really see the New York Forward process really being important for the vision of Mineola? So I'm going to pause for a few minutes, and this is an activity, LPC members. So take a couple moments, and we look forward to hearing from members of the public as well during the public session.
So for me, and since they don't have a microphone, I don't know if I should have a microphone. For me, what I consider the heart of downtown is the area that we designated as the historic downtown. So I would say from Harrison to the railroad and from Willis to Mineola Boulevard. So really the heart would be First, Second, Main, Mineola Boulevard. That area down there is, I think, the place that is in most need. We have issues up here on Jericho, but I think down there it's compact, and one or two projects down there, whether they be public or private, could really change, in my opinion, the dynamic of the downtown. We're not trying to work on a 2-mile stretch of Jericho Turnpike. We're working in a 3 or 4 block area that, and I think the elephant in the room is the building at the corner of 2nd and Main that was just demolished, and hopefully we'll get a project coming forward real soon. And once that is in the pipeline, I think that that area can really, $4.5 million sounds like a lot. It's not a lot, and so we kind of have to, in my opinion, focus it on an area that will get the biggest bang for our buck. And for me, I think that that's where it is. As far as my vision for the short term and the long term, the short term is to make downtown Mineola a destination, as someone mentioned earlier. We are reaching a point of critical mass of people, but where are those people going? We need them to stay here. We need to give them opportunities to stay here, so we need to create destinations. This year, the board and we decided that we would kind of create these artificial destinations, if you will, these one-off events or two-off events of, arts and automobiles, food shows, artisan markets, harvest festivals and things like that, 3 concerts down there. But eventually what I'd like to see is a more permanent destination, one that would be standalone, whatever that might be. And I think it includes some walkability, some green space, and certainly some nightlife, something to keep people here beyond the normal workday. So I said my piece. Why don't we go around, Mr. Sheriff?
So every area that you described includes my barbershop, St. James. I don't think it includes that.
Right, well, in Davenport, we can put it on this side of the road.
It goes down
So
to that.
it's an interesting question. My first question is, what is the heart of the downtown? So can this one have more than one ventricle? Because I think there are, I think you made a point earlier about how that area grew up organically. It wasn't all planned and stitched out, It just kind of happened over time. I was saying that it's a very interesting question. What is the heart of downtown? And to me, can it have more than one ventricle? Was kind of my analogy, because I think there are different aspects to the downtown. But I really do think I agree from Harrison to the railroad. But I would include Station Plaza North. I think the activity where people come and go, get picked up at the train there, the businesses that are there, that have survived and invested and prospered over a long time, I feel like that area is an important area as well. And I do, not only because I live on the south of the tracks, but it does give me a perspective as to, yes, it takes an effort to get to the other side, and some people do it, some people don't. I think the 2nd Street activities, even the visioning ones, I saw it myself the Friday of Labor Day weekend last year. People in my building at 1/3 Avenue that haven't necessarily come out there or connecting with one another and kind of having their first conversation beyond just passing each other in the hallway or the elevator, and connecting a little bit more in that space on 2nd Street, because it was social and there was music and there was an opportunity for them to do more than pass one another. And I think we do need to create more situations like that. In terms of vision for the short term and the long term. Some of it's been touched on. I think minimizing vacancies. I understand Mark's point that everything's relative. I think if you go to some communities that have benefited from this funding and the state's invested in the past, they really have had a lot of vacancies. We tend to be very hard on vacancies here. We don't want to have any of them. But I think minimizing them, improving walkability, whether that comes before or after you've had designed big projects, I'm less certain of. I think I need to think about that a little bit more as we go through this process. But I do think some of this, like Second and Mineola Boulevard, crossing that street, those sidewalks are extremely tight. There is street furniture, not street furniture, but there's infrastructure, signage, and other things along the way that make it very difficult to pass through. And then over the long term, I think this comes over time, but my vision would be building a sense of community over time in the downtown.
Thank you very much. Anybody else say anything?
For the next meeting, we may want to think about more lights.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, just thinking quickly and revisiting the area that Paul pointed out, I also think, going along the lines of what Jim said, if you've ever gone to 7th Street in Garden City on a Friday night, that is how so many businesses make so much money. That is how you get street vendors, little things like that, and the kids go up and down on their bicycles because it's shut down, and it gives them an area to go back and forth. If you can expand a little bit, so maybe the restaurants can put some tables outside, maybe there's little tents, you give people the areas to go. If you build it, they will come. So I think this is a great way to do it. I think that different subtle nuances wherever they have to be distributed to allow people to gather, to become more of a community. We feel the community because we're in the school. I can't go through King Cullen without knowing 600 people, and my husband won't go with me. So, I think if you feel that way downtown too, that could be a really nice feeling.
Thank you. Great. Wonderful. All right, well, thank you. Would you just care to say?
Great ideas so far, and going forward, I would absolutely support working on the historic downtown area. That's the area that really needs the most. And I absolutely agree that bring people there, and want to keep the people there. That's what's going to grow even further.
Absolutely. Thank you, Michael. John?
So I would truncate the district a little bit. I don't think it should go all the way over to Willis Avenue. I think the boundaries that you set going north and south are accurate, and I think Station Plaza should be included as well. But I think the eastern boundary should be that spur that goes up towards East Williston up along on the railroad. Anything east of that is just nobody's there. No will they ever be. One restaurant. So I think it would be better to truncate it and think that the easternmost point would be the part of the railroad that goes up the wall.
The only thing, and I think that this is something that is on everyone's mind, especially this week, is I would like to include the Western Beef property, because we need to, and so contrary to popular belief, the NYU Langone is not going there, housing is not going there. Right now, all we know is that they are leaving, but there is no plan. But this committee, this could be an opportunity for whoever decides to develop that property to present something to this committee. So I think that that is, although it is east of the Oyster Bay branch, that is something that we can take into consideration. Although, again, $4.5 million isn't going to cut it, it isn't going to do all of that, but that certainly could be something that, who knows when we do this open call, if that isn't one of the projects that comes forward. But again, I think we get a lot more bang for our buck if we stick to those 3 or 4 blocks downtown and Station Plaza. I think that the Long Island Railroad third track and station improvement really did a nice job down there. If you go down there, it's well lit. There's over 200 cameras there. You know, the streetscaping's nice. There are, you know, concerns, of course, that we're working with the MTA police and Nassau County Police to make sure that those concerns are mitigated and minimized. But I think in terms of aesthetics, perhaps widening the sidewalk in front of the diner and those restaurants there, if we can configure that some way. I would like to see the sidewalks widened on Main Street and Second Street, perhaps, so that you eliminate parking on one side of the street, keep it two ways, but widen the sidewalks. We can't widen it on both sides, but if you've ever gone to Fox's and you're walking, somebody's walking in the other direction, you know, one of you has to stand sideways against the wall while the other person walks by. And much of it has to do with the fact that we do have utilities on the sidewalk. We have, you know, poles and, you know, utilities and all of that. So, yeah, the building facade, yeah, that, you know, you've seen Fox's, that's thanks to our facade improvement program. If you've seen Davenport Press, that's our facade improvement program. Spaghettini, Marina Boulevard, those are all part of the facade improvement program. And I think that that really does make a difference. And we only want to continue to do that. But along with that, we do need to also work on walkability, safety, and I will go back to just one thing that Gina said. You know, everyone thinks, you know, 7th Street, Garden City, but I can tell you that I speak to the mayor of Garden City, and she's up to her eyeballs in problems with 7th Street, Garden City, because of the kids on the bikes, because of the distractions. So careful what you wish for. We need to do this smartly. You know, everyone thinks that we want to turn this into, you know, Rockville Center or Farmingdale. Those places are great on Friday nights and Saturdays, but who's there on Saturday mornings and Sunday mornings to pick up the garbage and the alcohol and the noise and all of that? So my vision is we want to make this for families. We don't necessarily want to make this for, not that I have anything against 20-somethings or anything like that, but we really want to make this a destination for families, for professionals, for the type of people that we want in our downtown, not, you know, intruding on our quality of life. So it's not just about opening restaurants and bars and nightlife. It has to be done in a smart way so that it's a place where we can take our kids there and we feel safe that they're hanging out there and that we're not dealing with issues, you know, every weekend because of noise and other issues that come. And I have great respect for the leaders of Garden City and Rockville Center and Farmingdale. They've done great jobs, but we can also learn from their mistakes. Yeah.
I meant it, I believe Gina meant it as a family.
Right.
Not
And I think that's the way that 7th Street started out, and then it kind of got too big for its own good, and now it's turned into something that I don't think they envisioned. And I think what I've heard is that some families now don't even go and sit outdoors because it's such a distraction with kids and bicycles and noise and cursing and all that, that it has morphed into something that is not what the intent was. So, and that's why we don't have concerts on 2nd Street every weekend. You know, I'm sure the St. James would love that. I'm sure the Spaghettini would love that because it's a great economic benefit to them. But we also need to be mindful that people live down there that, you know, some people do want to go home and go to sleep.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I agree with everything you said, but, and we do need to make it safe because it's very dangerous crossing any of the streets.
We need to make it safe because it's very dangerous crossing any of the streets downtown, especially the infamous 2nd Street and Mineola Boulevard intersection, which we showed the committee last week, and that is definitely going to be part of any project that we entertain. Would be some kind of traffic study to deal with the timing of those two lights. Unfortunately, there's nowhere to land a pedestrian overpass on the east side, right? So there's no way to burrow under, you know, the boulevard. So we do have to think about, because that intersection is the vein of my existence, and anyone who's ever gone south on Mineola Boulevard knows that needs to be fixed.
As an outsider who takes the train to Mineola occasionally,
South side, yeah.
Like, it's not an invited, there's no way to really sort of walk things that you would want to. And on the walking tour, I found amazing places in the world, like all those little sort of nooks and crannies along the tracks.
Yep.
that are, I never knew existed.
And ways to get to the train station from behind Fox's that many people don't know. We do have these kind of roads that people are not familiar with, but access points for sure. And you know, we approved the project on the south side where the taxi stand was, called the Bridge. And recently, and this is public information, recently they've amended their application to make it condos. So owner occupied, not rentals. And I know that that was a concern for many residents, was that we were approving rentals. Well, that's going to be 112 units of owner occupied condos. If you're looking to buy one, start saving.
So I would also like to see it for kids, teenagers. Like, there's no place for teenagers to go in our Mineola area, just to take their bikes and enjoy the summer, go get ice cream or something. I'd like to see, I don't know how you bring in businesses, but we need businesses down there. And you know what, we could use a little nightlife, even if it is a place that has a band at night. Maybe they end at 11 or something like that, but that would bring people, you know, I go to Farmingdale to see a band, so why not bring it here?
Well, the first thing that I thought is safety. The lights, they have to be changed. It's been forever a nightmare. It's dangerous at night. By 7 o'clock it's dark, especially in the winter. So I don't see the souls walking around Main Street or 2nd Street. Another thing is, looking at the future, you said that we have a lot of people coming from the courts, right? But crossing that road is very dangerous. That would be a nice thing to have an overpass. That would be a nice, very small expenditure. And for the kids, I think if you go to 2nd Street, go to the baseball field, you can actually make Honda Park for teenagers. Like you said, there's a park across the street. That would be wonderful for teenagers to be there, children and mothers and fathers, and just go across the street to the field. You can make it some amenities, because right now nobody can go there unless there's a game. You're not allowed to be there. We have a wonderful park, but also at a certain time you have to be home. And it's a lot of stores that are used. That probably, you have the whole idea that you're going to have probably 4 floors. Is that on Mineola Boulevard as well, or no?
Yeah, that entire historic area will be, it's capped at 40 feet unless it backs up to municipal or state land, in this case the railroad, then we've allowed it to put 50 feet. But so nothing like Morgan Park will be built anywhere in that area that we're looking at. Because that's, and it's not just my opinion, that's the overlay district that we created. So essentially we are bound by that, and the reason for that is because we wanted to keep that downtown historic feel and to fit in with other buildings that are shorter in stature.
Good question for you. In the future, looking years past, going on 2nd Street, going east, there's plenty of space eventually that's going to occur with all the factories that they have on the right side. It could be used for supermarkets, farmers markets, bars, and they stay away from really the central Mineola that people would come.
So if anyone's gone down East 2nd Street, most of those former factories, not all of them, but many of them have been bought out, starting with Dover Publications, all the way down to right next door, Allen Air, all the way to the end. The owner of many of those buildings happens to be Steel Equities, which is also one of the landlord. They own the Sears building in Garden City where NYU Langone just moved. And if you've gone down there, they really fixed up a lot of these factories really, really nicely. Turned them into warehouses. So, for example, where Dover Publications is now like a movie studio set warehouse where they have, so it's called Gold Coast something. And then further down, they've improved all the parking lots, and I've met with Steel Equities, and they're open to the idea of a brewery or something like that on East 2nd Street where noise is not an issue, where traffic is not an issue. So yes, we are in, although the uses that they are now used for is much better for the environment than what was there when you had machine shops and, you know, my parents worked right next to all manufacturing and God knows what went on there for 70 years, but now it's mostly warehouse space, and it's warehouse space for, you know, high-end kind of manufacturing, not, you know, dollar store tools.
Because
So, yeah, so that's part of the
that's
plan.
beautiful, yeah. Also, we don't have a supermarket. A lot of people had to walk over there, people that don't have the means to have a car and got the lack of room. So they used to walk or a bicycle, fresh bread. We have none of that.
I know, it is frustrating, and I wish I could snap my fingers and, you know, somebody told me, hey, why don't you get the Stop and Shop to come into the Western Depot? I said if it was that easy, I would do it, but if anyone has any ideas, we'll certainly, you know, we'll entertain those, but I can tell you that there is no plan for Western Beef at this time for any kind of development other than for it to be a supermarket. Of course, they can develop as of right. They are in a certain zone that they can build certain things, like manufacturing is right across the street from NASA Chromium, so they could build without our approval what they are entitled to build as of right, but that doesn't include, you know, multifamily housing, or doesn't include, you know, a 4-story office building.
And lastly, when I'm walking over the bridge, right in the Boulevard, it's a minor repair.
This summer, legislator Strauss has assured me that the bridge is going to be refurbished this summer.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
And so the Mineola Boulevard Bridge facade is rolling off. And one thing I'll mention that that Manny mentioned, the lighting that Mrs. Spino that we're looking to do downtown is the type of lighting that shines on the street, and then on the back end it shines on the sidewalk. So it kind of has like 2 goosenecks, one higher, one lower, one to shine on the sidewalks for safety and just for, you know, for people to feel comfortable, and the other one, and this includes all the way on East 2nd Street to the Oyster Bay branch. The development that's going on there, the Lala's Air development that's going on where the old Cozy Shack used to be, and Lily Popcorn, those of you who've been around long enough, that is going to include that lighting. We're talking about lighting bollards, the ones that are about this high on the Boulevard extension, so starting at Chef's Corner and going down to Station Plaza North. So those are some of the things that we put in our application. We are also getting quotes for the string lighting that we have in front of your store on the other side of 2nd Street, so next to the research facility. Between the research facility and the buildings across the street, we're going to do that same Edison lighting for safety, but really also for aesthetics and for it to look nicer. I think everyone liked the holiday lighting that we did this winter on Mineola Boulevard. So those are the types of things. Those are small, you know, things that we can do.
Great. All right, well, first off, thank you everybody for contemplating this and for sharing your vision. So we're about 10 to 8, just to do a quick time check. Of course, we want to be respectful of everybody's time and all of your time. So I think maybe for the last 10 minutes, we can just do a quick Q&A session, public comment period. If anybody has anything they'd like to say, by all means, now's your time. Yes, sir.
Please project if you can.
We'll repeat the question.
Yeah, we'll repeat the question.
It's just a question. So how does the village board tie in or work with this LPC? If you're going to have proposals and things come to you guys here, is the village involved at all? Does it just go right to New York State? You have no say? Or?
Yes. Yes, certainly. So this gentleman's question was, how does the villages work if I'm understanding correctly, if they want to propose a project, how does that work in conjunction with the state?
No, is the village involved in any kind of approval?
Oh, I'm sorry, I was gonna
Do
thank
they
you
have
for
a
that.
say in also what's going on? They're totally outside of this
Yes.
process?
So, Roger, sure.
The final decision on the slate of projects of this group, the LPC, the village board members are here tonight. I know several of them are here. They'll, I assume, be engaged in the process. And then anything that is proposed, an actual project that requires their approval in terms of a site plan or zoning change, obviously they would have that approval. Also, zoning changes are eligible in terms of a project. I'm not saying that that would happen here, but it has happened in prior rounds, and in those cases, we do engage with the local, governing body, the village board, because they would have to approve that. But no, generally, the decision is made by this group, hopefully with lots of involvement, at least engagement from the village board.
Yeah, so exactly. So we may actually be an applicant in the process as a village, so obviously we can't be the board that approves it. So in this case, I'm the only representative from the village board on this LPC, and I'm only one vote. So no, so this doesn't come down to the village board liking Project A or Project B, but we still do have to permit and all the normal process. If somebody has a project, and New York Forward would still have to go through the normal process. But in terms of submitting to the state projects, approving projects or not approving projects, that is within the purview of this committee and outside of the purview of the village board.
Great, thank you.
Also, just to make sure it was very clear earlier in the evening, ultimately it's the state's decision which projects get funded. So this committee recommends the slate of projects, but then the plan is submitted, and I will give you a sense of round one, villages still don't know here on Long Island, they haven't heard yet, and the state is still making that decision and hasn't announced. So once that happens, the LPC doesn't know, what the state's decision is. It's just their call. It's a state program, the state makes that choice.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I wanted to follow up. I was surprised there was no step that involved whether projects are ready to go on their existing zoning, whether they need variances. I would think if something is going to take a long time for a review, that should be a consideration in evaluating projects. And it respects the good job that our board has done over the years to try to balance the development with the homeowner interest. So I was very surprised there was no step, nothing on your evaluation form that asked, is this in conformity with existing zoning? Does this require a variance? So that it's something that this group should consider rather than it just being lost in the shuffle.
Absolutely, sir. These are things that we do consider in looking at projects. Of course, every project is different, but that is something that always comes, that we will evaluate if it comes up.
It's part of the feasibility of the project. If it
Yeah.
requires a zone change or a variance, that comes into play.
Is that
So it absolutely is considered.
Is that the shovel-ready designation, like a big part?
Part of it, yes. Right. How about you start at the back and then we'll take you.
My name is Andrew Beckman. I've worked in Mineola for 40 years. Many years on 1527 Franklin Avenue, and for 3 decades in my current location, 19 miles north. I want to just extend to the board our appreciation for being persistent and bringing this forth, and all the people here who spend your time doing it. Mineola has been a wonderful, wonderful village for us, and I have to tell you that many, many years ago there was I know people here probably know there was a master plan, a comprehensive master plan that they spent a lot of time on. And just like we have here, people like you, like Margaret, and it has a lot of information in it that may give some leads to what you want to do here in our park. With that, please thank you. I appreciate what you're doing for us. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think that just to say something, I think that the primary difference between a master plan and a strategic investment plan is that a master plan is great because it outlines the vision that the community wants. But the difference with New York Forward and a strategic investment plan is that we will hit the ground running with these projects, and within 2 to 5 years, you will see these projects take place because it's funding. These are real dollars that are going towards real development. So thank you for bringing that up, sir. And then yes, ma'am. Oh, actually, sir, sorry, just I promise that you can go next, and I'll take you right after. That's okay. Thank you.
someone brought this up, but I want to make sure that we're keeping on this side of the tracks, but as a small village, I think I'm like one of the youngest people here, but it doesn't make sense to have to drive the car to the train station. We only live a couple of blocks away because if we get off after dark, you pay too much attention to safety on this side. So if, say, go to a Broadway show and it closes a little late, you don't make that train, it's 10 or 11 o'clock. There's probably any night to have to drive your car 2 or 3 o'clock. So I understand all the conversations that are going on here, but it's a lot of money over and over being spent on this side. And when you get off at Davenport, it's pitch black. The sidewalks are uneven, and money was invested heavy on this side. I would like for money to be invested on the other side. And I don't even live on that side, but it's a little spooky getting off the train on that side, and it's dumb to drive your car there. You know you live 2 blocks away. It should be lit that you can walk down the street like people who live in condos, people who live in the newer buildings closer to the courts. All of that is forgotten, and that is part of the downtown core. And I have a couple of other ideas, but I'll leave it.
Of course. First off, thank you. I really do appreciate your input, and absolutely, this is definitely good input, and we do appreciate you saying this. This is absolutely something that we'll take back into consideration, especially if this could be the project that the village could propose or anything else. So we really do thank you. We look forward to hearing your additional input you'll have over the next few months. And yes, ma'am, I apologize. Yes, ma'am.
You know, if you want Mineola to be used, a viable area, you have to think about all the people who have to drive. I mean, I live down on Brown Street. That's quite a distance from the main part of Mineola. It's much easier for me to go to Lewis's Park to shop. I have convenient parking. There's restrictions how long you can park, but you don't have to pay to park. And when you go to Mineola, you cannot find a place to park. I think there's a new parking garage that I've never, don't know anything about. I would love to go to Cook's Deli. I'd love to frequent other places. I think many of my friends here would feel the same way. But where do we park? And how can you make a viable downtown area if people can't get there and use it?
Absolutely.
You know, that is, I think, my experience, especially recently, especially post-pandemic. We have hundreds of spots that are open, but everyone that wants to go to Cook's Deli wants to park in front of Cook's Deli. And only one person can park in front of Cook's Deli at any given time. So that parking lot that you're mentioning, right behind Cook's Deli, state-of-the-art, cameras, safe, secure. You can park there for 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 days. The parking lot 23, which is on the south side, is underutilized. The parking lot behind Fox's, there are spots there as well. So there's parking right across from the post office. You know, the big difference between us and Wilson Park, for example, and why Wilson Park does not have meters, although they do have the gentleman going around, you know, marking the tires for 2 hours, is that most of Wilson Park does not have above store residences, right? They don't have people living above the stores. If we were to eliminate, you know, those parking restrictions downtown, all of those people, all of those doctors, all of those nurses, all of those PAs would park in that spot in front of Cook's Deli and leave their car there for hours and days on end. And that has been our experience. And so, you know, people think that, you know, meters are a cash grab or that we're trying to penalize people. We're not. What we're trying to do is help businesses. And we're trying to keep cars moving. We have the new Kiss and Ride right across from Davenport Press. We purposely made that 2-hour parking so that you can park there, get on an elevator, go right across, go to Fox's, go anywhere, shop, come back in 2 hours, or if you want to go to Davenport and eat, or after 6 o'clock. We don't have any enforcement after 6 o'clock, so you can go to Davenport and spend 4 hours there if you like. On weekends, same thing. So there are, and maybe that's our job with these wayfinding signs, is to better educate the public and perhaps come up with an app and say where parking is available. I will say that, you know, in certain areas you have these new kiosks where you, on a phone app, you can just keep putting money in rather than running out putting quarters in. But we limit where we do that because what we were finding is that some of the workers from some of the medical facilities would just sit in their office and all day long they would just up the, you know, the money in their parking spot, and meanwhile that spot in front of Cuck's Deli is being occupied for 10 hours. So we have to mitigate that, and I have to tell you that there is plenty of parking if you look for it. I understand that, you know, people want to be able to, and unfortunately this goes back to Mineola wasn't planned. You know, Garden City was planned, so all the parking's behind the stores. We don't have that luxury. We didn't plan it that way. When A.T. Stewart planned Garden City, he had some thought in mind: wide sidewalks, parking behind the storefronts, easy access. We don't have that, so we have to think outside the box. We have to be creative. But I think that would be part of any project that the village would entertain, would be lighting, wayfinding signs, parking, and improving in those areas. But I have to tell you that many of our parking structures are currently underutilized because of the pandemic and people are not going to work as much. But I think it takes some education to get people to realize where it is. But all the stores in Mineola is so much better than the stores in Wilson Park, so come down here.
Wonderful, thank you. I think we just have time for one more question. Now the gentleman in the back of the blue shirt.
Yeah, thank you. I agree with the whole concept, and I'm in favor of the idea of limiting downtown, some of the exceptions. The only thing I would like to see on this is someone, not from an organization, and I don't know where any of the folks live on the organizations, but somebody from the community that borders the downtown area that's significantly impacted, like Cleveland, Barfield, those areas where there's issues with parking, things like that. I'd like to see them have a seat at the table, because I think it would give a lot more credibility to it. Because otherwise, what you're going to see is the Facebook junkies out there. But it would be the ability to hear firsthand as a group some of the issues that they face on a daily basis.
Absolutely, thank you, sir. And so I should just say so. So I just want to answer, thank you for that point. So I just want to say that at this point the LPC is finalized, but certainly we can look into organizing some kind of roundtable group with property owners along that stretch and different stakeholders. That's a very good point, so thank you for bringing it up.
Maybe for the future, this should be something that the state considers, that you do get a stakeholder from the DE area, you know, make it a core position.
We have representation up here from the East Williston section of Mineola, from the Carl Place section of Mineola, from north of Jericho Turnpike, from south of Jericho Turnpike. And like I said, we submitted about 24 names to the state, and then the state chose these people. Some people recused themselves, but we tried to get people. But I think we all, I mean, and Jim lives in that vicinity as well, and you lived forever on White
for a very long time.
Long time. So we'll certainly be cognizant of that. I think we're made aware of that daily from people who are driving down there, people who live down there, people who work down there. I know that Trustee Solosky lives in that vicinity as well. So we have the school, Chaminade, the hospital, the railroad. We are well aware of that. But I think we did the state did a pretty good job of picking a nice, balanced group of LPC members here. So I think we'll keep that in mind for sure. And I just want to say one last thing, that I know that they said 2 to 5 years, but I'm very excited and you're excited. This is going to take some time. So be patient and realize that it's not going to happen overnight. and that although it may not be 20 years, it's not going to be 2 years either. So it's going to take some time, but we want to make sure that we do it right. And while this process is going on, we're not stopping. We're not stopping developing downtown. We're not stopping revitalizing. We're not stopping doing the things that we are doing currently and we're doing and have been doing. We're going to continue to do those things parallel to this process.
Thank you. Awesome. And thank you, sir, for that point. So I think at this point,
I just want to pick up on your point about having awareness of the downtown that the lady mentioned. I really think part of this process, like an orientation, would be very important. I'll tell a quick anecdote. It's about 18 months ago, after I had moved into 1/3 Avenue. I'm at the 5 o'clock Mass in Corpus Christi, where I see some of these ladies now and again. And a conversation breaks out about the fact that I had moved. And I say, I moved to 1/3 Avenue. Well, for the next 5 minutes, all of these folks that are long-time Mineola folks and members of the community and members of the senior clubs try to figure out which building is 1/3 Avenue. Is it the Allure? Is it the one across from St. James? Is it the one they built on the East End? So I think that there is just still some learning that needs to occur about what has gone on down there over the last few years. And maybe Rick's point about having folks that are outside of the immediate area is a connection point to open that.
absolutely, thank you. All right then, so I think that, certainly it's about 8 o'clock, a little after 8 actually, so we certainly don't want to keep you all here all night, but on behalf of the New York State, BMJ, and the entire New York Forward team, thank you very much for being here tonight. Thank you to our LVC. Thank you to the Village of Mineola for hosting us here. As we mentioned before, our next LPC meeting will be on Monday, June 17th from 6 to 8, same place, same time. Please do your best to attend. We will be around the community doing public immersion.
May 23rd.
Yes, May 23rd as well. Do you want?
Yeah, so the next large public event, which will be more interactive, there's a public comment period like this at the end of every LPC meeting, but a public workshop is really meant to hear directly from you the entire evening, and that will be May 23rd here as well in this room. So please stay tuned. 6, I think, same time, same place.
And we'll get it out, we'll disseminate it, we'll put it out, and remember there's a website now, okay, MineolaNYF.com. MineolaNYF.com. All of this will be on.
And please do spread the word. Thank you all for being here. We look forward to working with you all. Have a great night.